you dive into writing your first chapter, you got to lay down a solid foundation. Your story cannot solely rely on just an awesome idea, amazing power, friendship, or epic fights. It needs a blueprint, a solid foundation, similar to the pillars that hold a started building together. After all, every scene and character needs to have a purpose of relevance in the story, acting as catalysts for change, whether they help drive the plot towards a new positive development or bring it to a new conflict. Whatever the case may be, they need to have some kind of motivation and not exist just for the sole purpose of adding drama. Hi, I'm Sonny G, and welcome to my first video essay, where I'll be diving into, as the title suggests, how to start writing your comic. So please buckle up and get yourself some work comfy because we are in for a long ride. However, firstly, I would like to mention that I have no experience other than trying to write a comic a few years ago, but absolutely no planning without even forming a basic structure or even an outline. That's what I'll try to dive into comic making once again. This time I have decided to actually organize my ideas in a storyline that has cohesiveness rather than just trying it right away, and who knows, maybe you'll find some of my ideas helpful. I'm sincerely hoping that is the case. Furthermore, I will be using alternating words instead of the censored ones. This does not mean I make less of the situation or of their meaning. I just want to talk about them without getting censored or adding a beeping sound that I might forget adding during the editing process. Also, please be aware as this video discusses sensitive topics such as bullying, self-harm, triggers, and mental health. If these topics are too heavy, then please take care of yourself and let's see each other on the next one. Step 1. The genre. First things first, we need to figure out what our story is going to be about. Mine's going to be an isekai. Now, I know some of you might already be rolling your eyes, like another isekai, really? And I get it, truly, because it's been done and redone a million times already. Nobody wants another one, right? But hear me out, it's been my dream since I was a kid, literally. I remember sitting in class, staring at the clock, wishing for some magical portal to pop up in the middle of class and take me away from suffering. Next thing you know, I'm off on some epic adventure while everyone else is stuck in doing algebra. Sadly, my Digimon adventure never happened, so yeah, I'm doing it. Now going back to the actual topic, where we're talking about what a genre is going to be about. So a story genre is like a label that helps categorize it based on its style and content. It can help our reader have an idea of what to expect from your story. There are tons of genres, however, the most popular ones are fantasy, action, romance, horror, comedy, and slice of life. However, I recommend not to write a story solely because of its popularity. Find something that you are wholeheartedly passionate about. After all, a story takes a lot of time and effort, which is not an easy feat to accomplish if you are not passionate about it, as it can feel more like a burden otherwise. At least that's my take on it. And also, it can be about something you're not super in love with, but you're actually pretty good at it regardless. Like, you might not love cooking, but you're absolutely excellent at it. Like Master Chef skills, yummy. Thus, I have tried to compare random wisdom, which I'm hoping will spark in you an idea if you don't have one already for your story. What do you really want your story to focus on? What are you passionate about? Think about what brings you joy or the complete opposite. Is there a hobby or interest that you love? What is something you're pretty good at? What is something you're pretty knowledgeable about? Put yourself back into those childhood dreams that could get you lost in your imagination for hours. What kind of games or shows do you enjoy as a child or at the present time? What is something that you previously struggled with or are currently struggling with that you may want to talk about? What is something that you have recently learned that has reshaped your way of thinking? What is something that you previously liked but now have a new perspective about? What is something you used to dislike but now have a new perspective about? What do you like to read or watch? What is something you passionately hate that you wish people talked more about? What is something you passionately love that you wish people talked more about? What is something that you absolutely love about your favorite character in a series, movie, or anime, and how could you use that to create a compelling story? What is something that you absolutely hate about your least favorite character in a series, movie, or anime, and how could you use that to create a compelling story? What is something that you absolutely they hate about your favorite character in a series, movie, or anime, and how could you use that to create a compelling story? What event in your life pops into your head right now? Now try taking it to the next level by dramatizing this event with your own unique ideas to make a compelling story about it. What did you do yesterday or today that's been swirling your mind? Or maybe something that is currently bugging you? How could you use that to create a compelling story? What event in your life do you often think about? Or one that has reshaped your perspective? How could you transform this experience into a compelling story? Look around you right now and think of a story based on what you see. That's actually how I came up with the idea about a chicken best villain. That's right, I spotted with my little eye, my chicken plushie.
And also, I used to have a chicken.
So, are you into fantasy with mythical creatures and quests that could change the entire fate of the world? Or are you into romance, into the heartstrings of love and the how will date of whom with whom kind of drama? Or perhaps you're into horror, where chilling and slow, suspenseful twists have your readers on the edge of their seats, eager to know what happens next. Or maybe you're into an isekai adventure, where an ordinary civilian gets transported to a whole new world packed with magic and adventure. Sorry, I just had to try, In conclusion, your genre can be about anything that ignites your passion, as it can be about what you absolutely enjoy, absolutely hate with a passion, or something you're good at. Regardless of your genre of choice has been previously oversaturated. After all, your characters and plot will make your story become unique on its own, as it becomes submerged with your ideas and creativity as you weave it, adding your own twist to your liking. That's as long as it makes you, its creator, heart-pounded with fulfillment. Your story will be comprised of success as it makes you eager to see its resolution be a realization, uniting others to yearn to know it too. Step number 2, the setting. Before setting the scene, we need to set the stage of where our story will unfold. As our setting has to be more than just dropping a pin onto our map, more than just a landscape or as a background decoration, as it can be utilized to bring a deeper understanding about our story and likewise about our characters. In a way, we could say the setting is almost like this invisible character backstage, that while they may not be out on the front of the stage as our MC, they nonetheless played a very crucial role, as they are the ones running the show from behind, pulling the strings, the lights, the sound effects, and managing the props, everything there is to set the stage for our characters. While indeed our background can give a sense of pleasing to our readers, it needs to be visually descriptive pleasing in the way we provide context without having a long essay kind of explanation. For example, our setting can greatly enhance or reveal in small but profound ways about our characters from the way we visually describe an object to an event. Essentially, let the background speak for itself. It can tell about your character and about your world building. We can even break it down to a formula. First, we have the setting. To build it, you need to combine it with your character. Together, this will help showcase the motive or emotion we as the author are trying to convey, or in other words, the adjective that visually describe what's taking place. Whether it's about the scene, world building, or our character's state, or at least that's how I see it. Which brings us to our next element. Time! More specifically about what era or time period our story will take place in. For example, we could choose the written descriptive route, as in, it was the year 1933 and unemployment had hit almost every household due to the Great Depression. People were struggling to survive. However, in a comic we can utilize our drawings on top of our detailed descriptions to show a greater impact on how we construct each scene. From how we specifically detail the backgrounds, we can utilize absolutely everything that may contribute to showcasing our setting period. Now let's continue with our later scenario. And it was nothing short of different in the bustling streets of New York, as many were driven away from their homes. Among the many affected was Richard Turner, who, having missed the last payment of his apartment, became evicted. Thus, with empty pockets and nowhere else to go but to the same streets which had once brought him so immense joy, left with a shadow of his past and dreams of becoming an actor, taking refuge just beside a newspaper store. Now, instead of adding all of this long, overly detailed description and probably boring our readers, we can simply take out the most descriptive details and replace them with drawings that visually describe our story. For example, we might show tall scrappy buildings looming over as our character Richard Turner walks by just below them with his head bowed, thus signifying how small our character feels. And perhaps we can also add people surrounding him, that our character is so in depth in their own thoughts that they don't even register anyone walking past them. However, my main takeaway is that the scene of our characters can greatly influence or enhance how they behave, in the way they think and talk, their relationships and interactions. We can utilize them in order to give a further meaning about their life and likewise about our story. For example, as our character lives outside in the busy streets of New York, they can most probably hear every sound surrounding them, from the trains to cones falling and even the birds as they fly by, to conversations, including the ones where they talk about them.
Blah, blah, blah.
However, this is a period where many were struggling, not just one or two, but many, and still are. However, sometimes when one is going through a struggling time, it can be hard to focus on our surroundings and how others are also struggling. And we can start by considering how we can shape or reshape our character's perspective upon this rather abrupt change of circumstances due to the conflicts in their time period. Thus, utilizing the setting to our advantage to help showcase our character's identity, such as their journey of dreaming, belonging, and wanting to belong. As we can adapt our setting to our advantage, let's say perhaps our character, despite their rather tumultuous circumstances and vulnerability, is a rather strong character, and we can even present this rather than just describing it. For example, the rain is pouring upon them. They have no jacket, no umbrella, not even a sail to cover them from the freezing cold rain. Yet we can utilize the weather to reflect their strong desire to keep going. Perhaps they begin crying without caring if anyone's watching them. After all, their tears are not even noticeable because of the rain. But that wasn't even their thoughts right now. All they wanted to do was to let all of their frustrations out. Thus, they began pouring tears even stronger and faster than the clouds themselves, mixed with their screaming and boogers. And several minutes later of crying, they finally start feeling themselves again, satisfied, as if a weight of their heart has been lifted as they wipe away their tears and boogers. Suddenly, almost immediately, up in the skies, the sun starts coming out. That's in a way signifying that only better things will be coming soon, but also that the world in their own way is validating their feelings. Also, this is just an example. Please do cover yourself and find a safe place when it is raining. Let aside sounds, scents, touches, and tastes, basically the 5 senses, come together to enhance our setting that evokes a deeper understanding about your story and utilize it for your characters and their development. Now, let's let the brainstorming question roll in. Is your story set in a historical event? Why? How would you describe your character's surroundings or environment? Does your character's environment influence their perspective? If so, how and why? Does your character's environment cause any changes in their personality or behavior? Does your character's environment changes at any point, and how does this change affect them? Is your character emotionally impacted by their surroundings? If so, how and why? Is your character impacted by how people perceive them because of their surroundings? If so, how and why? How does the environment help your character in any way? What kind of transportation exists in your world? And how can they bring any impact onto your story? What significant structures is your character surrounded with? How does the state of the economy shape the era of your story? How can we let the weather impact your character's life? Thus, in conclusion, while interior setting relies on time and place to have an understanding of where our story is set, we must not over-rely solely on them. Rather, we must utilize our character's environment and surroundings by adding tension and elements that will help build an extension of what we are trying to convey, some of which can literally serve as evidence of foreshadowing. Communicate to your reader, not just through your characters, but also through the setting you have placed them in. After all, combining all these ingredients will help develop a deeper understanding and context about our character's impact, hardship, and experiences, and how they can influence every aspect of their life, and likewise enhance our storytelling about them. In a sense, it could be said that the setting is a reflection of your world and your character's conflicts, lifestyle, and personality, as they help accentuate and construct your theme and the uniqueness of your storytelling. Step number 3, the conflict. Now, depending on the scene you're aiming for, it might be more helpful to figure out the conflict first. This way, you can create your character to be equipped with the necessary skills to face the challenges that may come along their way. After all, you can have a great story with some conflict. If there's no clash between opposing forces, your main character won't grow or face any real challenges in reaching their goals. Let's think about it, okay? What makes stories memorable? Is it the main character going through life and creating chaos all around them without suffering any consequence for their actions? No, of course not. After all, we're in it for the suspense and the drama created by the many challenges and hurdles the characters have to face. These trials force the characters to challenge themselves, each serving as a catalyst for a change. What could this change be? I don't know, but we want to keep reading the story to find out. Like, let's put it this way. Imagine Luffy attaining his dream effortlessly, without facing any significant challenge. Picture him defeating all his enemies with a single blow, or even more unlikely, having no opponents at all throughout his journey. Imagine Luffy as an exceptionally super resourceful and skillful guy, capable of performing all the necessary roles such as being a swordsman, navigator, chef, and so on, without the need for a crew. Because what do you know, he can do it all. We humans are naturally curious individuals. We are captivated by the intricate dynamics of when and how a conflict can unfold. Our intrigue is not solely on the fact of how the clash will turn out, but why did it happen? After all, we might feel a magnetic pull towards the choices of the characters and how they decide to navigate through them. At times, we can even identify ourselves in them, or even agree with their choices. And of course, there's also the opposite reaction. We may not necessarily agree with their decision, but nonetheless, we are left curious to know the reasoning behind it. As we become witnesses to their struggles, we become instinctively invested in their fates, eager to understand how much of their personalities or perspective of the world shape their reaction towards the adversity they're facing. Each twist and turn can add multiple layers to the drama. So how can we create conflict within the story to incorporate that intriguing factor, the magnetic pull that will draw our readers in? Well, in every story there's a main goal our character is trying to achieve. This often serves as the driving force behind our main character's journeys. This goal should come with multiple conflicts. However, we can separate them into three parts. The initial conflict, this is our character's first struggle from their debut. There's part that set our whole story into motion. It is what disrupts their day-to-day life to a new one entirely. This is known as an inciting incident. It is what drives them to a change that will become highlighted through our character's response and action thereafter. Don't worry, we will be talking more in depth about the inciting incident later. However, there can be two initial struggles, I think. Hear me out. It can be a personal struggle in which our character is firstly introduced. Per se, Luffy's inciting incident is a bit tricky. As mentioned before, an inciting incident typically occurs when a character undergoes a significant change or shift in their journey. Some might say Luffy's inciting incident is when he ate the devil fruit, but that's not quite the case. While sure it ticks all the boxes, it's not the event that pushes him towards his goal of becoming the Pirate King. While Luffy wanted to become a pirate from the very beginning, he didn't yet aspire to be the Pirate King. This yearning only happened after Shanks saved him from a Sea King, and it's this pivotal moment, the one where Shanks rigs his arm to protect Luffy, that launches him on his personal journey toward the Pirate King dream. But why is this Luffy's inciting incident or first initial conflict? Now, the story is for another video. Just kidding, but basically Luffy saw firsthand what it means to live out to one's dream. It's not just about having courage. It's about having the courage and strength to protect those who are dear to you, even through the midst of sacrifice. Thus, the change happened not by him eating a devil fruit, but his change came after gaining newfound knowledge and resolve that gave more meaning to his already found dream. In a way, you could say they help expand Luffy's visual world. The mid-journey conflict. This is where the challenges and the risks come in. The mid-journey conflicts are every challenge and struggle that arises in between the initial one and the story's climax. We need to drop our characters in a web full of dilemmas. However, it needs to be more than that. Sometimes we're going to have them take the hardest choice possible, mainly because of the drama, of course. However, we need to be able not to make it so obvious. We need to make it make sense within the story. Don't just drop a problem on them without a reason. Let your characters struggle and confront their fears, but make it so that it's their choice. I'm mainly saying this because long ago I read a comic where the woman protagonist intentionally made a man lead face his fear of germs, or was it heights? Either way, her only intention for him getting over his phobia was just so that she could spend time with him and ultimately end him in a romantic relationship with him instead of actually helping them because they cared for them. Another option could have been them accepting them as they were, but of course, apparently that was too much to ask for a romantic comic. Because what do you know, they do end up getting together at the end, and it gives manipulative, it gives toxic. Thank you, Brittany. That's absolutely super messed up. Please don't do that. Like instead you could create a scenario where your character needs to face their fears to save someone they have come to love. It gives character development, it gives emotion, it gives tension, and it gives next chapter. Conflict can also sometimes turn to one of failure or criticism from other characters or even with himself. However, these struggles may also serve as a source of inspiration for others or even for themselves, or even better, make them be the problem. But whatever the case may be, let them make tough decisions, but do let them have time to rest once in a while. We're not trying to make a telenovela after all. No puede ser. Let them have their vacation break and then bam, hit them with everything. Let me give an example by continuing where we left off with Luffy. Luffy, through the desire of pursuing his dream, set himself a task, a smaller goal if you will. This small goal is his pursuit of finding his crew, and is what will subsequently lead him to his ultimate goal, becoming the king of the pirates. But it also leads him to a whirlwind of challenges which serve as the conflicts in the story. And right from the very start, we see how he tackles each and every conflict with a very unique approach, the Luffy way if you will. But we want to see this reaction if a conflict wasn't there in the first place, and this is the kind of drama, the kind of thrill that a person like to see. And that is because we come to understand characters and become intrigued by them. From the very first moment, we see how they react to their initial conflict to how they allow themselves to grow, as their first response reveals to the reader a basis of their personality, values, and belief. And as the story keeps unfolding, we gain a deeper knowledge and understanding of how much they are willing to change, not just for the goal, but for what they have gained and lost throughout their journey. This is why it is so immensely important to give them a problem to struggle with. We need to see how their mind works, how much they allow to reveal to their companions and even to themselves, how much each conflict influences them, how they adapt to change, and how much they are willing to change despite them or because of them. The final conflict. This is a part of the story where we reach its climax, where tension is sky high, where our reader will become a witness to our character's greatest challenge, the final conflict to achieve their goal, and should be one that you have been foreshadowed throughout the journey, where possibly every conflict our character has faced will be revealed to be more than just a simple struggle. Each one will hold a deeper meaning, serving a unique purpose. After all, these challenges were not random, but were intricately woven into the narrative, ultimately leading our characters toward a greater understanding of themselves, the world, and their journey. It should provide a satisfying conclusion, not necessarily a happy ending, but one that leaves a reader with a sense of satisfaction and closure. And it should ultimately answer to the reader the following questions. Why were they the main characters? Why did they choose the goal that they did? Why did the character choose to solve the conflict the way they did? And why did our story end the way they did? And to better understand a character's journey, it's important to recognize the two types of conflict they may face. One of them is external conflict, which is basically characters versus an external force, something that is beyond their control, but nonetheless, it can hinder or affect them in various ways, such as oppressive laws that can limit their freedom, societal expectations that don't align with their beliefs, wants, or needs, and so on. Said conflict can also start long before the inciting incident. So what kind of conflict are we thinking about for our story? The very classic battle between good versus evil, which sounds so easy but so hard on paper, which can actually be both an internal and external conflict. Or maybe we're thinking about a personal struggle, which is an internal conflict, like overcoming self-doubt, which is also a very tricky one to write about, since it's like a stick of gum that's constantly lingering in our thoughts, and it's definitely not something that can be solved in just one season alone, or even 3. Self-doubt is something that can always linger even in our best moments. But it can be the kind of story where you can explore the complexity of being human. So instead of your main character being magically fixed overnight, it can be about how they learn to cope with their feelings and how they learn to be happy just by being themselves. Or maybe it can be both of both worlds. We'll dive deeper into these character conflicts in the character section, but for now, I'd like you to brainstorm what this conflict could be with a list of questions to ask ourselves. What does your character need to accomplish and why? What is the main problem or challenge for your character to achieve their goal? What or who is the first major conflict that your character encounters? What or who is the mid-journey conflict that your character encounters? What or who is the last major conflict that your character encounters? Why does this conflict matter to your character? What is at stake if your character fails? What obstacle can stand in their way way? How does each conflict tie to your character's goal? How does each conflict tie to your character's fears? How does each conflict become more intense? What are the setbacks of your character through each conflict? Does your character make the conflict worse through their own actions or choices? How does the antagonist or conflict counter your character's efforts? How is the conflict introduced? Besides winning, what does your character gain from each conflict? What does your character lose from each conflict? Does the resolution impact your character's world or another character besides them? Why does your character keep getting involved in each conflict? How does your character's personality or choices attract each conflict? Does the conflict feel forced out of convenience or does it feel natural? What would happen if your character ignored this conflict? What's the absolute worst case scenario if your character loses? What are the positive changes from your character winning or losing? What are the negative changes from your character winning or losing? Does the conflict challenge your main character's belief, values, or identity? What is your character's immediate reaction and perspective about the conflict? What is your character's last perspective about the conflict? Is your conflict in any shape or form politically, socially, economically, or in other ways? Also, something I would like to add is that the goal for a character doesn't necessarily need to be something big or grand. It can be something small, per se, something like returning to a quiet and small village, wanting to live a peaceful life, or even finding a dream for themselves can be their goal, or they can even change their goal or dream somewhere along the story. After all, the circumstances in a character's life make it difficult for them to accomplish their goal. Like in the case of Psychic K, he just wishes to have a very peaceful, mundane life. However, as much as he would like to avoid every problem in his entire existence, life has somehow given him powers, and he uses his powers exactly the way he envisions. That's right, to avoid even the slightest inconvenience to his way of life. But because he didn't want to sign up for the Hero Convention, they got him working solving predicaments part-time, and as is for his well-deserved payment, coffee jelly. Now that's a very unique take from how we often tend to see, and that makes it interesting. How, you may ask? Well, in my very unprofessional opinion, it all started from how Psyche decided to live his life with the powers he was given, as that was how his conflict was born. As our characters go on their venture, they will undoubtedly get into new conflicts, but there's always that main first conflict that gives readers get a glimpse into how our characters are, from how they react and act once they gain the resolve to how they choose to act upon it. Avoidance itself is also a sign of response upon the problem. Nonetheless, there's a mix of engagement into how this one conflict can create every conflict that comes next. Or to put in other terms, it's our very best friend but also worst enemy. The one and only, the butterfly effect, because upon every action, it follows a reaction that leads to another action. As another example, I once saw this drama. It was about how the main girl protagonist will have to live with his crush and his family. Now it's very cliche, I know, but at the same time, there's a uniqueness in the story itself, from how she will begin to act and how he will react upon her actions. And also, his whole family will move in with her and her family, so there's a colossal amount of shenanigans one could come up with to make the story feel old yet at the same time feel refreshing. See how it unfolds from them being strangers to perhaps even becoming enemies, then being BFF, and finally what everyone had been waiting for, then being romantic partners, all the while their family is being somewhat noisy or even being super oblivious of what's even going on. However, we must let our relationship evolve naturally without feeling forced. But how would our readers get to watch this if there are no elements strong enough that evoke a sense of curiosity from the very beginning? Well, I might be getting ahead of myself, but for now, just know we must also be able to employ a curiosity effect within our conflict, as it will create a desire to know what happens next. So in a way, we could say our conflict and main character must work together in order to create a sense of curiosity upon our readers. In conclusion, conflict is what gets your story moving and gets your readers hooked. Whether it's a big showdown between characters or just a character battling their own internal struggles, conflict adds that good juicy tension. It's all about putting your characters in tough situations and how they react and how they plan to move forward. We interrupt this message to do some breaking news. This is an alert to report that if you have not subscribed already, please do so now, as it will incredibly help this channel. Thank you very much, and now back to our video. Step 4. Inciting Incident is the crucial turning point in the story. The moment everything goes sideways for your character. Think of it as a personal plot twist, as the universe flips their day-to-day life upside down and throws them into an entirely new one. This moment is mostly presented during the first chapter of the story. Now, this pivotal event can be an unexpected encounter, an unforeseen disaster, a sudden news, or a flying ice cream truck. It can be absolutely anything, but whatever the case may be, it is important for us as writers to challenge the preconceived ideas about our characters and story. Let me explain. There's a before and after the inciting incident in the way we decide to identify our character and likewise our story. To be able to explain this further, I will divide into 3 parts. The first stage is what I like to call the preconceived stage, the initial impression, or my favorite one, the appetizer. This is what happened before the inciting incident may begin. As readers, we most likely have an initial idea of how a character is by what is being presented to us. This is most likely in our nature of being judgmental individuals. Hence, we have so many terms regarding this characteristic alone, such as prejudice, stereotyping, and so on. To put it simply, this is all about impressions. In the first chapter, there will be most likely 3 main impressions our reader will have on our character, and likewise with our story. As readers, from the very first chapter, we begin to perceive the groundwork laid out by the author, such as their foundation through the various elements of storytelling, featuring the characters, setting, conflict, and so on. In the opening pages, we are introduced to the characters who are most likely to drive the story forward. As we get to see the interaction among the characters, providing an insight into the complexities of their social dynamic as well as their individualism, as each character's behavior and choices provide us an insight into their personalities, motivations, challenges, and values. These interactions are not incidental, but done on purpose to showcase their emotional state and how they navigate the world along with them. From here, I will be talking about bullying, so please, if this is a very sensitive topic for you, then please feel free to stop watching this video or skip to my timestamp. For instance, in Uzuko's case, we observe from the very first chapter, actually scratch that. From the very first panel, we get to observe his strong commitment to stand up for what he believes is right. As despite his lack of superpowers, he stands up to defend someone else. This determination not only highlights his character, but also provides us insight into his emotional state. While yes, he's certainly shaken in fear, yet despite his inner turmoil, he does not let that hinder him. Instead, he is willing to sacrifice himself not just for his ideals, but because of his desire to protect others. However, we also see an irony. While Izuku is indeed willing to sacrifice for others, he lacks the courage when the one being attacks him. He visually becomes shaken, mumbling in a lower tone, even unable to meet the eyes of his attacker. This reluctance reveals to us his internal conflict, while the struggle he faces because of his bully is the external conflict. Also, I can identify a lot of foreshadowing for what's to come later on, which is so important to add from the very beginning onto a story. As we delve more into the story, we gain a deeper understanding of the characters' world and their interactions with it. More specifically, we get to observe how they navigate and respond to the social constructs that influence their reality. This can include their worldview and their world building, more specifically the world's politics, social norms, cultural expectations, and so on. Continuing our conversation about Izuku, we also get an insight into how he interacts with the world. In Izuku's society, everything revolves around superpowers, from dissipating fire to anything really. Yet despite the fact that this world's greatest fear and their number one trending topic in this world is power, Izuku lacks any abilities that will allow him to conform to the social norms established by society. And although his situation is beyond his control, he still endures the consequences of these society expectations. After all, he lives in a world where being normal means possessing superpowers, while he, without any abilities, is viewed as rare. Yet despite knowing all of this, he still dreams and yearns to become a hero. Now, from these scenes, we are already forming our own preconceived ideas about Izuku as a character. Some may perceive him as brave, but also weak and timid. Some of the most common traits of a main character, and not just about him, but also about his world. A world with a classic battle of good versus evil, filled with heroes and villains. A society that has built everything around superpowers, shaping every aspect of life from education to the workforce, and celebrating those with the most powerful abilities. One can maybe inclined to say that this is nothing particularly new. It's just another hero kind of a story about the ordinary kid who suddenly turned hero and saved the world. And I'll be honest, when I first came across Boku no Hero Academia, I thought the very same thing. After all, this is yet another hero story in Shonen Jump. However, this first impression may all be according to the author's will. Why? Well, let me tell you. To properly hook someone to their story, one must first showcase something ordinary. So once we launch the hook, we can reel them in deeper into the story. Because this is the part where we, as writers, must challenge ourselves to craft a story that makes a very familiar plot and spins us into something fresh and unique. After all, just because a story has a very similar plot to others, the way the narrative is written, the characters, their journeys, motivations, and how they are challenged to the world building makes everything unique to the story. That's why I don't care about making another isekai story, even if it turns out pretty bad. Now here comes the long-awaited next stage, the inciting incident, the second impression or the main course, because now we're about to really dig in and get served with all the flavors and spices that get the story moving. First, let's think about how this incident can reveal something about our character without all the info dump intro. I will be talking once again about bullying, so please, if this is a very sensitive topic for you, feel free to skip to my timestamp once again. An example of this will be when Izuku saw his attacker, his bully, who had relentlessly bullied him every day, being captured by a villain. Instinctively, he immediately rushes in to try and save him. However, the moment that truly showcases the incident in the chapter is when Izuku reveals to his attacker the reason behind his decision to intervene, because your face seemed to be calling for help. This moment served as a turning point, the moment Izuku's life took a 180-degree turn. Now, we have finally come to the last stage, the turning point, the defining last impression of the first chapter, or the dessert. The final stage focuses on the ripple effects that this single event has caused, highlighting both its initial benefits and drawbacks. Basically, it's about what happens after the inciting incident. First, let's focus on the beneficial events, shall we? Because of this event, it inspired very significant things simultaneously. The first one showcases the MC's core values and his kind of heroism. Through his simple yet powerful statement, perfectly sums up who he truly is at his core. This moment not only showcases his deep sense of empathy, but also reveals his determination to help others. For despite the years of bullying he endured because of his bully, Izuku still chooses compassion over resentment or revenge instinctively. Essentially, this single moment highlights how compassion is in his nature to help those in need, even if they don't deserve it. He could have very easily turned away. He could have let his feeling of anger and hurt govern him and his actions, but he didn't. Well, yes, he could have reacted faster after realizing the villain had grabbed another citizen, especially after experiencing firsthand what it felt like to be captured by the same villain. And undoubtedly, he was feeling guilty over this, because in his mind what was happening towards the city was his fault. However, we must also remember he's just a kid with no superpowers to be able to hold his ground. Nonetheless, he justified his hesitation, thinking to himself, I'm really sorry. Someone will come and save you right now. Someone. A hero will come to save you. Yet all it took was Izuku's bully pleading for help to ignite a fierce determination within him and go rescue him, because in that moment he set aside his personal feelings or even the circumstances of his reality, and he decided to help him even after being fully aware that he was risking his own life in the process. By expressing his motivation so candidly, he not only surprises his enemy, his bully himself, and a four main character who we'll talk about in a minute, but also surprises the reader. Another point we're mentioning is that Iku's admitting the motivation behind saving his bully so straightforwardly can greatly generate a lot of debate, as it has the potential to intrigue readers both positively and negatively, as the soul of selfless acts and encourage some readers to continue engaging with the story, even when they don't necessarily agree with Izuku's core values. Nonetheless, it can also lead some readers to stop reading the story altogether. Warning, I will be talking about self-harm in the following discussion. If this topic is too sensitive for you, please feel free to stop watching or skip to the timestamp. And the second significant thing that sparked was a change, or more precisely, the ripple effects began to reveal themselves. The reaction from his low-life bully. So far, I've only described Bakugo as just a bully or as an attacker, because up to this point, that's all he has shown to be. He's regularly, verbally, and physically abusive towards Izuku. For example, he threw Izuku's precious notebook out of a window, fully knowing how much it meant to him. He even went so far as to tell Izuku to jump off of a roof, which is one of the few times where we see Izuku actually get mad at Bakugo, because so far, we have only seen Izuku backing away from him, refusing to meet him eye to eye, constantly whispering, shaking, and so on. This only deepens the great significance of how much those words hurt Izuku, who is quirkless and fully aware of the meaning behind them, because it's beyond just an insult and an attack on Izuku's worth as a person. This is beyond bullying, as it can leave lasting emotional scars for anyone who experiences it, and it also underscores all the hard work and the constant struggle Izuku faces and his desires to be a hero against all odds. It's almost as if Bakugo is telling Izuku that since he's powerless, not only can he not defend himself, but let alone protect anyone else, that he might as well give up on ever becoming the hero he wishes to be, as it is simply impossible. And the fact that it's coming from someone who Izuku once considered a friend, and for all we know, it still does. After Bakugo gets rescued, we see him being thoughtful, scratching up his nose, annoyed. Later we see him shaking with anger at what I imagine is just outside Izuku's home, as he outbursts, "The only thing missing is that I have to apologize to a good for nothing with an individuality like you. I owe you, maybe, but don't think I will apologize, F nerd." The statements are very telling because he acknowledges that his actions were wrong and that Izuku does indeed deserve an apology, yet he outright refuses to give him one. Bakugo is also admitting that Izuku helped save him, yet he came and breaks himself to say thank you, and yet he still keeps throwing out nicknames like it's nothing. And honestly, being a nerd even considered an insult in the first place. I never understood that. If anything, being a bully is what's actually shameful. Now let's go into the third and despite of the moment also spark, and that is the theme essentially of this story. What true heroism means, at least as my own interpretation. And it all comes down to All Might's reaction to Izuku's act of heroism. As All Might said it, "You have managed to persuade me that my morals are not there just for me to just listen. To me, it's saying that I do not set an example. The professionals put their lives on the line all the time in the game." Because after all, Izuku wasn't the only one being consumed by guilt over Bakugo's capture. All Might too was being implied by feelings of shame, as he repeatedly kept calling himself pathetic for what he felt was his failure, not just as a hero, but also as the number one hero. After all, the citizens had put their trust in him, relying on him on his strength to keep them safe. Thus his feelings of culpability died on him, feelings that he had done more harm than helping. Yet while he was feeling ashamed, Izuku appeared right in front of him, rushing in the same way we were fan who just moments ago had shared his situation, while busily shaking with his eyes closed shut tightly unconsciously, possibly from feeling ashamed and nervous before even asking, "Is it possible for a person without individuality to become like you?" To which All Might answered by sharing with Izuku his own struggle about how 5 years ago he sustained a wound during a village attack that severely damaged his respiratory system and led to the complete removal of his stomach. Not only that, but his face has become emaciated and haggard, with his eyes showing the side effects of repeated surgeries, and additionally, how he can no longer work as a hero for more than 3 hours a day. Furthermore, All Might also shares with Izuku his vision, the symbol of peace, who saves people with a smile absolutely can't afford to bow to the forces of evil. If I laugh, it is just to distract me from the fear that I feel and the pressure under which I am watched as heroes. Professionals must always put their life at stake, so I can't openly say that being a hero is possible without ability, because it may not be possible simply. This statement completely shattered Izuku's world, leaving him more visibly shaken than before, as he instinctively started looking down, as if he could no longer summon the confidence or resolve to meet All Might's eyes again. again. After all, this wasn't just anyone saying it. It wasn't just a number one hero. It was the hero Izuku admired the most, telling him that his lifelong dream couldn't be conceivable with his abilities. The weight of All Might's words hung over Izuku like a dark cloud as it cast a shadow of gloom in their surroundings. Even though the scenes before and after contradicted this, as it was still visibly the morning time, it symbolized how deeply Izuku was affected. More specifically, his feelings of insecurity and self-doubt. And this is yet another example of how to effectively convey to the reader your message as a writer through the use of character and drawing dynamics, by showcasing a character's personality through their interactions with others and their reactions in different situations, such as when they become nervous or vulnerable. The story feels more authentic. Additionally, the background and effects play a crucial role in also portraying the emotional tone and reinforcing the message to the reader as an artist. Also, I would like to mention that after everything that happened that day, Izuku was willing to abandon his lifelong dream of becoming a hero, most probably because he was feeling satisfied having not only met his hero, but the number one hero and him entering his Wheel of Fortune life riddle that's been haunting him since the dawn of time. But most importantly, he helped rescue not just anyone, but his very own bully. Thus, he was essentially able to be a hero, unknowingly accomplishing his lifelong dream. Thus, in a way, he had answered his own life riddle. After the events of Bakugo being saved, All Might is seen rush into what he imagines was again just outside Izuku's home. Instantly, All Might starts off with his hero persona, his trademark smile, and bursts out, "I'm here!" And because of All Might's injuries, he suddenly starts coughing up blood and his hero persona starts to fade. As he stumbles back, his body shrinks and returns to his natural human form. What makes this scene even more impactful is that it is being played out in All Might's authentic form, because it is in this authentic human form that All Might apologizes to Izuku. This subtle yet deliberate choice from the creator adds a layer of amazing storytelling, as it adds that emotional layer of authenticity and sincerity to his words. As the shift from his heroic persona to his genuine human form makes his apology feel more authentic and heartfelt, and likewise adding that layer of remorse feels more authentic. All Might also admits to Izuku that he was the only one willing to act, despite Izuku being shy and wordless, even with a whole crowd gathered around. It's also worth noting that this crowd may have consisted of people with quirks who could have intervened at any moment, either individually or together. Yet none of them did, but who did? That's right, Izuku did. The boy who's quirkless and has more reasons to fear what may happen to him than any of them. This is a classic example of the bystander effect, and it works so exceptionally well in this scene, because it highlights while All Might shows off his own volition to thank Izuku, he could have very easily left things as if happened, letting the moment pass by without a word of gratitude to Izuku. However, because that doesn't exactly align with All Might's core values, both as a hero and as a person, he felt compelled to express his appreciation. All Might wanted to thank Izuku for his bravery, as it was thanks to his actions he created the necessary time All Might needed to transform into his hero persona and save Bakugo. Additionally, All Might confessed to Izuku how he was deeply moved by his personal story and actions. On the other hand, we can see how much All Might's words affected Izuku, as Izuku started shaking, but this time not out of fear, but out of happiness. After all, it was coming from his hero, the one he respected and admired the most, the one confessing how much his actions and story had touched him. And it also served as a reminder to All Might of what it truly means to be a hero, about how it's not just about having powers, it's also about the instinct and heart to save others no matter the risk. As he found resolve in Izuku's determination, seeing in him the true spark of being a hero. As an added bonus, it also highlights not just to All Might, but also to the reader, the kind of person, the kind of hero Izuku is. All Might also admits that he would like to correctly describe the answer to Izuku's earlier question.
Is it possible for a person with shadow individuality to become a hero?
To which All Might rectifies, "You can become a hero." This pivotal moment serves as a turning point for Izuku, as it's a moment that had been built upon his inciting incident. It's the moment that, in Izuku's eyes, turned his world upside down, because as previously stated, Izuku had already given up on his dream of becoming a hero. Besides, him saving his bully wasn't motivated by the desire for glory or recognition, or even less to his long-awaited question, because by this time, he was already giving his was answered by the hero he admires the most. He simply did it because Bakugo was pleading for help. Yet all it took was for All Might's declaration to reel him back to his dream, because it came from his beloved hero, that one he respects and admires above all else. And it was he who told him the answer he's been waiting to hear all along. He gave Izuku a sense of reassurance and affirmation that yes, indeed, he could become a hero. And as with All Might's previous heartfelt declaration, it felt authentic and powerful because he was professing Izuku's long-awaited answer, not as his hero persona, but as his true human self. In a way, you could say society's storm were so deeply ingrained in Izuku's mind that he also believed one must have powers to become a hero. This belief may have also been the one that caused him to wait, hoping until that day someone came and reassured him that he too could become a hero. This is seen brilliantly highlighting the importance of showing, rather than just with an explanation alone, how our characters struggle. Boku no Hero Academia tells a story about heroes and about how they are these invisible beings with godlike powers who can withstand any and every punch that comes their way. Because no, they struggle. It illustrates that they can get hurt, face challenges, and grapple with feelings of self-doubt. Yet despite their personal struggles, they find a way to rise again. As writers, we should let our readers understand why our characters decide to keep on fighting. The dramas are more focused on the negative future events that an inciting incident can cause and foreshadow. Some of the events it can trigger do not necessarily need to be directed towards the main character, but also other characters, including the antagonist and the world itself. However, I'm not going to get into the future events in elaborate detail because not only have I not continued following Boku no Hero Academia for a long time due to the sole existence of a single character who completely ruined the experience and enjoyment I had of this story, but also because I'm only analyzing solely the first chapter. Whatever happens afterward is not something I will be talking about. And besides, the other chapters are constructed differently. So, if I did a great explanation, which hopefully I did, you may have a clearer idea on how to create an inciting incident. Now, we have discussed inciting incident for the main character, our example being Izuku from Boku no Hero Academia. Now, let's talk about the inciting incident of another character, someone we have also talked about. That's right, we're going to be talking about Bakugo. Izuku and Bakugo both simultaneously had their inciting incident at the same time, which is honestly simply brilliant. I won't go on and on about it as I might do a video about it. However, I will say this: Bakugo sees Izuku as someone beneath him, and having been saved by him is undeniably humiliating from his point of view. While it doesn't necessarily spark a change, as he's still absorbed into his superiority complex, it is still undoubtedly a sparking moment, a memory that, coupled with others and self-reflection in time, will slowly blossom to his character development, that one that we all crave and Izuku and Bakugo desperately need. But what exactly can the inciting incident be in the first place? Let's brainstorm together, shall we? What unexpected event could shatter your character's moral routine? What shocking news could your character receive that forces them to act? What unexpected encounter could introduce a new challenge or opportunity for your character? What hidden truth is revealed about your character's world? What catastrophic event could happen that forces your character into taking action? What item is lost or stolen, prompting your character into taking action? That your character go missing, leading them to a new encounter or to someone? What a strange object that your character find in the old attic? What sudden illness strikes your character's loved one, forcing them to act? What public scandal shake up your character's small town? Does your character get an unexpected inheritance? Does your character get gifted an old photo revealing a hidden family drama? The initial item fell from the sky and somehow your character is the only one who took notice and took it? Does your character meet a super famous person, leading them to have a Wattpad kind of story? Does your character do something forbidden that leads them to a consequence? Does your character accidentally meet someone that will either ruin or change their life forever? Why? Is your character framed for a crime that they didn't commit, so now they're on the run, so now they must find the true culprit? Was your character continuously avoiding something until they suddenly had no choice but to do something about it? Does your character discover a mysterious subject that suddenly brings them to gain powers or go to another world? Does your character accidentally stumble upon the Dark Forces new members meeting, so now they have to pretend to be one of them to avoid revealing that they are just an ordinary civilian? storytelling? What if instead of the usual story when an ordinary person meets someone or something that grants them powers, it's the complete opposite? What if they no longer have their powers and must face the consequences of their previous actions? What if the villain finally got everything they ever wanted, money and power, but instead of feeling happy, they just found themselves utterly bored? So what do? Binge watch series and movies every day until a neighbor moves in next door and changes all their plans? What if a werewolf got cursed for being a bad wolfie, so instead of turning into a fierce wolf, they just turn into a cute, fluffy little bunny? What if the teacher from rock band instead of the students, and they all met in the intention while supervising the students? What if, in a past life, but now that our game over title screen appeared, they've been reincarnated as the worst enemy, a human? Or what if the hero and antagonist switch bodies? Now, after we have a better idea about our inciting incident, let's ask ourselves the following questions. What causes this event? What makes this the inciting incident story-wise? Why is this event the turning point of your character? How does this event create a sense of urgency for your character? Does this event indirectly or directly introduce your main character or your villain? How does your character feel about this event? What is your character's first reaction? What is your character's first instinctive reaction? What does your character end up doing? How does this event challenge your character's worldview or personal belief? How does this event change the world and the people surrounding your character? How does this event change your antagonist? What makes this event different from anything your character has faced before? What are the initial effects of this event? What are the ripple effects of this event? Would your story still work if this event never happened and was replaced with something else or was treated differently? How? What would happen if your character ignored this event? Can your character even ignore this event? How did this event set up or change your character's goal? What are the benefits or negatives for your character about this event? What are the benefits or negatives for your antagonist about this event? How did this event lead to the next conflict? How did this event connect to the last conflict? Was this event set up prior to the story even starting? Was this event the result of destiny or fate? As readers, we are very judgmental if the story or character doesn't satisfy our needs, of what we perceive as interesting, or worth enough to take our precious time of the day to purposely engage in them, because otherwise we simply won't engage with them, because most likely we already have reached a preconceived conclusion of the story and character that doesn't necessarily align with our idea of enjoyment. Remember, not all readers think alike. Some will keep reading while others might stop altogether. The key to making our inciting incident impactful is to create a change that is powerful enough to alter the direction of our character's destiny or journey. However, it doesn't necessarily need to be a big roller coaster kind of ride. It can be something simple but impactful and powerful in the way that makes discomfort them, by driving them to a choice that otherwise would not have made, or challenging them in either their values, beliefs, goals, or even in perception. So in conclusion, the inciting incident is the moment our character sets on a path of transformation. That's right, it's the moment our character transforms into a very powerful magical girl story-wise. And that's a wrap for now, as this is only part 1, as it wasn't really taking me too long to make. As for the next part, it will all depend on you, Legends. Nonetheless, thank you very much for watching until the very end, Legends. Mission accomplished. Don't forget to subscribe for the next mission. Stay creative, stay legendary, and don't forget to read Satellite. Now go on and write your story literally and figuratively, because this absolute beauty and masterpiece of the games is over and out for now. Bye bye, adios.